Greetings, astronauts, and welcome back to Astro Candy. Hello, I'm Raven, your host, and I'm so excited to welcome spiritual teacher and Akashic Records expert practitioner Emily Logan Lewis, aka Emily the Mystic, to the Astro Candy podcast to discuss clearing malevolent entities, clearing negative energies, and closing portals. It's officially the spring season, and when we think of spring, we think of spring cleaning, out with the old and with the new, donating gently used clothes, getting rid of any trash, decluttering your space. But something that most people don't think about that's also great to do in your space or even on your person is clearing out negative energies or even entity attachments. I know this is kind of a spooky episode to do during the spring season. I was thinking about doing it during October, but I was like, no, we all want that fresh start to our new year to kick off the astrological new year and Aries season, and of course the spring. So let's talk about ways that we can not just declutter our space and get rid of negative energy in our home, but also entities. And who better to tell us all about entities than Emily the Mystic. Emily is an intuitive mentor. She's an Akashic Records expert practitioner and teacher. She's an intuition development coach and a galactic channel. She is on a mission to soften shadow work and help old souls heal, as well as reclaim their intuitive gifts, manifest their dreams, and experience the most joyful, wonderful life while doing it. Emily's an expert in mediumship, past life regressions, meditation, Akashic Records, hypnotherapy techniques, quantum healing, and other spiritual practices. And she is one hell of an entity clearer. She actually offers entity clearing sessions as part of her practice. So in this episode, Emily teaches us about entities, how they attach to people and places, and the common signs and symptoms of an entity attachment. She discusses the different classifications of entities, which can vary in terms of malevolence, and why some entities attach to people while others attach to buildings or homes. We discuss how entities are portrayed in pop culture and movies like Insidious and Poltergeist. And Emily shares how entities find a, quote, feeding source and how you can reduce your risk of an entity attachment. She also explains what happens during an entity clearing session, ways to effectively expel an entity from your auric field, and the importance of practicing good energetic hygiene. Emily teaches us how to clear negative energies in our home spaces, and she shares the incense that she highly recommends for energy clearing in addition to sage and Palo Santo, as well as common household ingredients that can be used as energy clearing agents. We also discuss the importance of finding and closing portals in your home, getting rid of items that are charged with negative energy, and just in general, decluttering your space. This is such an eye-opening conversation. If you're like me, new into spirituality, you're probably mostly focusing on love and light, but there's two sides to every coin, and we cannot acknowledge the light without also acknowledging the dark. And not only are we going to acknowledge it in this episode, but we're going to talk about defense against it and how to play offense as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, I would appreciate you if you would rate this podcast 5 stars or subscribe to get the latest episodes downloaded right to your phone. And tell a friend too. Share this episode with a friend. That would be amazing. All right. Enjoy the episode. Emily, I'm so excited for you to be back on the Astro Candy podcast.
I'm back on the show. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. I have to first congratulate you on the Emily the Mystic show on your podcast.
Thank you. Yes, I launched a podcast in January and it's been so much fun. And Raven helped me with it. So
okay, I really
grateful
did
for you.
I just answered a few questions and that was it. But did Zoe do the art?
Zoe did the art. Our friend who's a graphic designer did a great job with the podcast show art. Mm-hmm.
It looks so great. Your photo looks so great. The content is king. Like I love it because for me, I'm like, this is amazing. I can have a window view of like all of your thoughts on everything happening, like energetically and in life. And I'm just like, okay, I love this. It's a nice little pick me up. So I appreciate it. And I'm just so jazzed that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see where it takes me and what portals it leads us to. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know what I mean.
Yes. Yes. That's actually my favorite part. The end. And the portal is closed. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm in my own throes of podcast production. You, I'm sure, get how that goes. And in brainstorming, like guests and topics I want to cover, there are so many. I don't even know what. Well, I know I was listening to one of your episodes and I was like, well, I definitely need to have Emily back on the podcast, which we had discussed. I was like, what are we going to talk about? And I just felt like this naturally came up because I had reached out to you pretty much about something similar. And I want to talk about negative entities and negative energy clearing. And I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, like step by step. So before we even talk about how to clear negative entities, let's talk about what they are.
I was discovering at the very beginning of my psychic and mediumship journey. So, for your audience to know, at the beginning of my business journey, I was doing psychic and mediumship readings, and I discovered that I could sense something was off in my client's energy, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I could sense that there was something there that was almost blocking me, the psychic, the medium, from being able to access information about my clients. And also, I could sense too that they were having trouble with their mental health and with anxiety and other sort of mood disorder things that were kind of going on in the background for them. So I'd spend time talking to my clients about and giving them guidance about those sorts of things. And then I learned that there are these energetic parasites that do exist, that can attach to our energy fields as humans. And unfortunately, they can sort of weaponize us. They can cause a great interference sort of in our own energy. And they can just make normal day-to-day life really difficult and really challenging. So basically, in a nutshell, entities are low consciousness, low vibrational parasitic spirits that people with psychic gifts and abilities can sense them or see them or pick up on them. And what we can do is we can get trained in being able to clear them and help clients release them and let them go. Because what they do is they create, again, disturbances, interferences, and they can just make life a lot harder. And we don't want that. We want life to be as easy and joyful as it can be. So,
yeah. I have two questions. The first question is, you as a psychic intuitive, you mentioned that it was just really hard to read the energy, or you just weren't getting all the information downloaded to you that you were trying to access. How does that show up? And talk about it energetically. Like, is it like hitting a wall? Is
yes.
it like, okay, so when you're running into that wall, like, does it feel like I'm blinking? The receiver is dying.
Yeah. So on a given day, let's say I was doing 3 readings in a day, I would have 2 readings that would be flowing and there would be a lot of guidance, and the client would feel like, wow, I got a lot out of this. This is all resonating. It makes sense. They would have a really good experience. And then there would be one reading where I felt like I, again, was just hitting up against a wall. I couldn't get much from that person, from their guides. And the information that would come through just felt a little off. And again, it's an energy. It's almost like when you meet somebody new for the first time and there's something off about them and you can't put your finger on it and you like kind of want to get away from them right away.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of an irritating energy. That's what I would pick up on.
All right. So my next question is, you had mentioned that those of us, well, I guess we all innately have intuitive abilities. Whether you tap into them or not is one thing. But does this present differently when you're an intuitive person and sensitive to energies versus you're very unaware? Like, if you took the regular, average, everyday person who's not listening to a podcast like Asher Candy and is just living very, we'll just say like in the 3D, and there's nothing wrong with that. Would they know there's something up? Whereas like if it was me, I feel like I would be I think I did, which we'll talk about, where I was like, there's just something up. So how would they pick up on something's wrong here?
So there are some common signs and symptoms to look out for with entity attachment. The biggest one is going to be mental health challenges and disturbances. And I know this is a big talk. And by the way, this podcast episode is not a substitute for medical advice. I am not a licensed therapist or mental health practitioner. But what I do see is that entities weaponize our pre-existing mental health challenges and make those symptoms worse. So things like depression, things like anxiety, panic, insomnia, night terrors, nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night. I can't sleep. I feel like something's in the room with me. That sort of vibe.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes me feel icky.
And they can also exacerbate chronic pain too. So if you have had any physical health conditions that just will not go away, you've had them for years and years and years, and it's like a mystery illness or something that doctors can't explain, and you've tried everything, it's likely that there is an energetic reason for why that pain is still there.
Wow. Okay. I'm asking you this as truly someone who doesn't know much about it. And I'm guessing the average person listening for the first time is probably like, this is very interesting to me and new. So if this is a basic ass question, Emily, I'm so sorry.
Ask away.
But I have to ask, have you seen the movie Insidious?
Yes.
Okay. Is that portrayal of that negative, I think that's like a demon, or I don't even know what they call it. Is that an entity? Is that like a negative entity, or is that a whole nother realm?
Yeah. So I would say there are different classifications of entities.
Okay.
Almost like there are different classifications of animal species, right?
Okay.
That can vary in terms of their malevolence and their malevolent intent towards humans. So at the very low end of the spectrum, we have sort of leech-like entities that are very low consciousness. They don't really have any thoughts. They don't have the capacity for love. In order to exist, they need to take energy like a leech would. So those entities, easy to remove, super simple. Then in the middle, we start to get into our trickster spirit entities. Trickster spirits tend to be more malevolent, and they have consciousness. So they are sentient beings, sort of like a ghost, if you want to think of, ghosts that we see in modern movies. And they're the ones that are really good at manipulating our thought patterns. So for anyone who has struggled with low self-worth and low negative self-talk, like a critical inner voice that you just can't shake, it's always in the back of your head that's telling you something's bad about you, or you're ugly, or you're fat, or all of these like negative words, but it doesn't feel like it's you, and it doesn't feel like it's your voice. It's very likely that it's a trickster spirit or another type of entity that's sort of in that middle range group. Okay. And then there are super malevolent entities at the other end of the spectrum that tend to be more so attached to big buildings or houses or specific locations because they need more energy to feed from. So they're not going to be necessarily attached to one human, although they can be if that person is particularly malevolent. Serial killers, politicians with really bad intent. I think we can all come up with a few examples of that. But
fill in the blank.
Yes, but also to locations too, where they have the opportunity to feed from a lot of people.
It is so interesting, this conversation, because I feel like my knowledge has always been limited to the pop culture sense. If we're talking about like Poltergeist, or like I brought up Insidious, and those are probably the more extreme cases where they're tied to, like you said, a home. I think of like Amityville Horror. And especially, I don't know why, like I will never forget The Haunting in Connecticut. It's a movie, but it was a documentary with the real people telling their real experiences of what happened in this house and the negative entity that was in the basement there. I will never, this is probably why I haven't touched this topic at all, because I am one of those people who knows this is real. Like, I know. And I'm also one of those people who's like, so I'm just going to.
Yeah, totally. And that was me too for a long time. Like, I'm sitting here in front of you. I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking about this on a podcast episode, but here we are.
Yeah. So I have a question though. Like, is this a matter of acknowledgement? I'm always afraid of like secondhand secondhand haunt, if you will. Like if I don't acknowledge the presence of an entity or spirit or whatever it is, is it really there? Or the real question is it really going to affect me? So I'm very curious, like, does the acknowledgement of it make it go away or make it lesser?
So my opinion on that is, as a spiritual practitioner, I want to be educated in as many things as I possibly can be. And so that there are no blind spots for me when it comes to my work and with my clients. I want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence to check all of the shadowy corners and all of the cobwebby spaces in your own energy to make sure that I, as a practitioner, I'm not missing anything. So that's why I feel really called to talk about this topic, because if we ignore them and pretend that they don't exist, that doesn't mean that they're still not affecting us in some way. So just because we don't believe in it doesn't mean it's not real.
Yeah, I know, right?
As much as I hate to say that.
I just love living in ignorance sometimes.
Yeah,
It's like
me too. I know. We have
la-di-da-di-da.
those. Yes, I have those moments myself. I get it.
So anyone who's listening and they're like, okay, I get it. I understand what an entity is. I understand how it can affect me. So I don't know if we explicitly covered this. Why or how an entity grabs onto you? Like,
Yeah.
why is it one person and not the other?
So entities, in order to feed, by the way, entities are not attached to an energetic source. We as human beings are attached to God's source as our source for our beingness, for our consciousness, for our energy. Entities don't have that luxury. They are born literally out of the collective negative energy. And in order to exist and survive, they need a feeding source. So they like attracts like in a vibrational reality, which is what we live in. We live in a vibrational energetic reality. So entities exist at a specific energetic frequency. So what do? They look for a host that is carrying that specific energetic frequency. So if you, as a human, have been through a trauma during the course of your life, any kind of trauma, examples could include situations that brought about a deep level of fear or some sort of assault or some sort of really heavy emotional challenge that you went through, any kind of trauma, an entity at that specific vibration will be attracted to you like a moth to a flame.
Okay, so that's why
And that's when the attachment begins, is at trauma.
and so that's why you're saying, though, that these, like, whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever, are magnified when you have an entity attachment because they've
Correct.
latched onto you and they are feeding off of that specific thing. And that just seems to grow and grow and grow.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That begs the question then, when we talk about vibrational frequencies, which I have on this podcast, high vibrations would be love, peace, joy. Mm-hmm. Low vibrations, depression, sadness, anger. Like I'm not sure what the lowest ones are. But again, begs the question. So if I am integrated enough, and by that I mean working through my emotions, healing my traumas, working through depression, anxiety actively and clearing that, then that reduces my risk of an entity attachment?
Then if you're actively doing the work, it's likely that you're kicking these things out of your field without even knowing it, because you're raising your vibration enough that they can't exist because the feeding supply isn't there anymore. So yes, for sure. And I have clients come to me who have no entities because they're doing the work and they're, and they've done the healing and they've gone back to their biggest traumas and they've addressed it. And therefore, anything that may have been there that could have been perpetuating their mental health symptoms in the past just isn't there anymore. It can't survive.
It's so interesting how energy is energy and it is elusive of all like time and space and physical capacity. Like if we're talking about the energetic plane. And so to bring this down to like a little more tangible for anybody who's listening, it makes me think of when you are in a low vibey, angry, frustrated, mad at the world kind of state, and then you start getting people in your orbit, like actual real people in your orbit, who are also angry, frustrated, agitated, they're lashing out, mad at the world. That's essentially what you're saying with these entities as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. That they will be attracted to people who are constantly in those lower vibrational states. What
Okay.
I'm not saying is I'm not spiritually bypassing or saying that we can't feel our feelings or experience fear or experience shame or experience grief because we're human. That's what we're here to do. We're here to have all of the emotions.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that because these entities attach to things that are in our subconscious mind creates what's called the shadow, which is an energetic experience that lives in your auric field. So if we're not addressing the things in our shadow, aka our subconscious mind, the deep depths of our subconscious, then there could be places in our auric field where entities could be more susceptible to attaching.
So you've talked about coming across a client who clearly had some type of negative entity attachment. I'm curious, would you say something? Like if you felt things were off, like do you say things to people or do you just drop a hint or do you just say none of my business?
I do now. So in my sessions now, and I tend to leave it towards the end of the session. If I'm sensing that something is going on, I will bring it up with the client at the end and I'll just say, hey, I'm being shown that there's something in your field that would really benefit you if we deal with it, because it may be kind of perpetuating some of the symptoms we've already talked about today during the course of the
Mm.
reading. But here's the thing, doing an entity release is a really sacred experience. So I'm going to ask that we book a separate session to cover that when you feel ready to do that.
Okay, so I would love to talk about what an entity release session entails because I feel like that's what this conversation has really been leading up to. We've discussed like entities, how to spot them, how they attach, how you can, the signs and symptoms of an entity attachment. So, how do you even begin the process of clearing an entity? I'm sure it depends on what kind.
Yeah. So, in order to most effectively get them out of your auric field and deal with them, we have to go to the root of the trauma and we
Ooh.
have to heal whatever has been going on in your reality and your subconscious mind that created the attachment in the first place. Because otherwise, if I, as a practitioner, am just plucking these entities off of you, it's basically leaving a gaping wound for something else to come and
Mm.
attach. So the way that we do it and the method and modality that I was taught is that I lead you into a deeply meditative state, similar to a hypnotherapy practice, where I am guiding you in the meditation to actually meet with these things yourself, with me holding the space for you
With the entity?
with the entity. Now, I know that sounds super
Oh.
freaky, but it's really it's really not as crazy as it sounds. So for example, let's say I'm guiding you through the session and you would say, I feel like I'm seeing this dark cloaked figure in front of me. And I'm like, okay, we've met with entity number one. Then I prompt you with a question, what does this entity want from you? And you tell me it wants me to feel fear. It wants me to be super scared. And then I ask you, okay, at what age did this entity attach? And because you're in the meditative state, we can tap into your subconscious mind. So you would say 7 years old. And I would say, okay, Raven, well, what happened at 7 years old? And then again, we're in the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is going to tell us that that's the age at which your parents divorced. And then we're going to go deeper into that. We're going to get more clarity on how that's affected you. And then we're going to actually do the work to get rid of the entity once and for all.
Are they stubborn? Do they hang around? Do they linger? Or are they just like, okay, yeah, I'll go? I'm so
Yeah, I know.
confused.
It depends. Sometimes they are a little bit more stubborn. So when we're doing the actual clearing process, which I work with a variety of different archangels to support that, we will both feel it when it's gone. It's almost like a
Mm.
weight has been lifted off of the client's shoulders, or they have an emotional release. They're just like, okay, yeah, it's gone. It's no longer there. I don't see it, but it can take some time. It depends on how malevolent these things are and how long they've been with you. But typically, when you're showing up to schedule a session, your time with that being, that entity is done. And they, on
Okay.
some level, know that it's
Mm.
time that they have to move on because they've been found out, basically.
Interesting. That makes sense
Yeah.
though. It makes me wonder. It makes me wonder about a few things. And I don't know if this is connected at all, but I would love to hear your take on this. I remember when I was a kid, I was lying in bed and I don't know what I think you could look back on it and call it a sleep paralysis moment. I feel like sleep paralysis, I have a hard time deciphering between sleep paralysis and entities because I feel like sleep paralysis is just like the scientific explanation, but
Yeah.
that's just my intuitive hunch. I'm not sure. But I've had experiences then, even now, not recently, but where I feel this like dark figure person over me. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? And it kind of
Totally.
like
Yeah.
startles me awake or wakes me up or something. And again, I've been told like, oh, it's just because you were jolted out of REM because you heard a noise or it's sleep paralysis or whatever. But I'm curious, anybody experiencing those kinds of things, like, is that to be considered that it could be a negative entity or is it just what they chalk it up to be, just sleep paralysis?
It could be a bunch of different things. It could be, yes, an entity that's attached to you. It could also be an entity attached to the home that you're
Mm.
staying in or the location that you're staying in. It could actually be a benevolent spirit guide, but typically spirit guides aren't going to be that jolting and create fear like that in the middle of the night.
Ah,
So more likely, I would say that it would be a negative entity. It can also be, and I hesitate to say this, but it could also be a negative galactic being that
what
is
is
paying you
that?
a visit as well.
What is that?
So it could be a malevolent alien being as well that's coming to visit you in the middle of the night.
The way I just got full body chills, which makes me wanna throw up because
I hate saying it. I hate it.
oh my gosh. Whew, okay. Sorry, lots to digest here. I mean, like I said, I was very forthcoming. I really have viewed all of this as like, I don't see anything, I won't say anything, like, and if I see
Mhm.
it, I won't say it. So, here's why I wanna talk about this though, because anybody doing spiritual work needs to be conscious of their spiritual hygiene. I feel like I always say like I'm new into spirituality, but no, I'm like 4 years deep now, so we have no excuses. But it's true, like when you're new in it especially, you just don't even think twice about anything because for the most part your intentions are pure and love and light, but I think and you can speak to this, Emily, that it still opens up the door for both. You can't acknowledge one without also acknowledging the other. You can't acknowledge light without acknowledging the dark.
100%. And that's a big thing. Something that I'm really big about in my work is acknowledging both sides of the spiritual coin. That, yes, we have benevolent spirit guides who love us and they're incredible and they're fun to work with. But there are also malevolent things out there that don't have our highest and best interests at heart. And so, if we are wanting to dive deeper into our meditation practice or connecting with spirit guides or using tools like tarot cards, pendulums, all these different things, I think it's important that we are aware that not everything in the spirit world, again, has our highest and best interests at heart. And it's better to be safe than sorry and not walking in blind.
Yeah. I am also curious your take on Ouija boards because, I use tarot cards and crystals and other type of modalities, right? I have never touched a Ouija board. Do you think Ouija boards are of a lower vibrational frequency that tend to attract those negative experiences?
Yes, I would say that they do because they open up a portal for dark spirits to
Mm.
come in. And unfortunately, I have seen the majority of my clients who have used one, they do have some sort of attachment.
Oh.
don't love saying that on the podcast, but that has just been my experience because they open up a portal for
Yeah.
things that just want to come in and they want to hang out with you, but then they kind of need a reason to stick around. And so they stick around, but they're probably, you know, using your energy to keep them going.
Yeah. I don't know if my dad was lying about this. I don't think he was. I don't think he has a reason to lie to me about it, but he told me about when he and his friends, when he was younger, my age, used a Ouija board. And he said that the little, I don't even know what it's called, that little like thing that you use to move around the board started spinning. No one was touching it, started
Oh,
spinning, and then flew across the room and hit the wall. And they stopped. They were like, "Nope, never again. We'll never touch one." And I don't know if he told me that just so I wouldn't touch one.
yeah,
But I'm like, why would
totally.
he lie? I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise. Okay, so I kind of want to get into some practical ways to maintain clear energy channels,
Mhm.
clear any negative energies. Like let's now that we talked about the entities, the heavy stuff, obviously book a session with Emily. She
He
can
says
help you
that
with
you have
that.
a problem. I would love to help you.
Yes. But let's talk about the energetics of our spaces, our home, the things inside of our spaces in our home that are mucking up the energy and lowering the vibration. And I want to talk about this because I did reach out to you a few weeks ago where I was like, first of all, the amount of questions I ask you that are so, in my opinion, like left fucking field, and you're just like ready. You're just ready to catch that ball. You're like,
Yeah,
I got you.
always.
I
Always.
love it. I love it and I appreciate you. But I was just having the weirdest experience in my apartment. I was like, there's something, it feels like there's energy leaks in this apartment, and like I'm having negative energy spill. And I don't know if you listening live in an apartment, the walls are thin, and I do feel like other people's energies are like penetrating my safe space. And so I reached out to Emily. I asked her, what do I do? You gave me some amazing recommendations. I started with what I had, which was some sage. If you're an energetic spiritual girly, I'm sure you've got some sage. I will say, I think I would know. Yeah. I haven't had any type of experience since that. I went around and very intentionally every single door, window,
Hmm.
room,
Hmm.
I set the intention of like casting out all negative energy and welcoming in like abundance, love, light, prosperity. Like I was very intentional about that
Hmm.
and weight lifted.
Hmm.
So, sage, great resource. You mentioned, I think it was garlic or salt.
Yeah. So my favorite incense to use for energy clearing that I may have forgotten to tell you, is called copal resin incense. So it's spelled Copal. You can get it on Amazon, or a lot of spiritual shops have it. It's a type of incense that you have to burn on a charcoal tablet and a special incense holder, but it creates this really strong smoke that entities hate. They hate it.
Okay, good to know.
So that is something that you can get your hands on. Of course, sage is great. Palo Santo is also great. Copal is going to do more of the heavy duty clearing for you. And it's just a really good thing to have around. Garlic is also a really great tool because it gets out the energy vampires. So we can also look at entities as being an energy vampire of sorts. So having garlic around in maybe some of the major doorways of your home, I sprinkle it underneath my front doormat. And because I have an alleyway where my house is, so I am able to put it outside. So garlic salt is really great for that. And then entities also don't like regular salt, so an Epsom salt.
Okay.
So you can sprinkle that in windowsills, doorways, or even just having a bowl of it near the front door of your home is also a nice thing to have on hand.
I love that because I have most of those things. I want to try out that incense that you were talking about, though. So I read this. I think it was online, so take it with a grain of salt. But I'm asking you if you think this is legit or not. Someone was saying how they had done some type of energy clearing with their house. Maybe it was sage, Palo Santo, Epsom salt, whatever it is that they used, and they were kind of just like trying to ward off the negative energy. They set that intention, and they were supposed to have someone come over. They sage, no negative energy. and that person like ends up canceling or like not coming over. Do you think that's a correlation? I guess my question is like, if I were to sage my house and say no negative energy, and then can it actually keep people out who, do you know what I'm trying to say? Can it
Yeah.
keep people out who have those negative energies or maybe even entity attachments?
Yeah, it definitely could, for sure. If someone is not a good energy to be brought into your space, I think any of the practices that I've just given you may keep that person away, for sure.
Ooh, okay. I feel like that really ties in a lot of everything that we were saying too about how some people may not know if they have an entity attachment and then like are subconsciously like drawn away from those cleared spaces.
One other thing that I also want to bring to your audience's attention is that the way that entities get in to
Yeah.
homes, to realities, is through what we call portals. So
Okay.
we can have portals in our home to the spirit world, basically. And those are the energetic doorways that ghosts, other spirits, other energies cross in between us here in the physical realm and the astral realm. So if there are any areas of the home where people in your family don't like to go, you feel creeped out, whether that be a basement or a garage or a closet or an area that people don't go often, that's very quiet, that sort of sits undisturbed, but you get a weird sense when you go there. It's likely that there's a portal there.
Ooh. Can you clear
So
portals?
you can close portals. So
Close
what
them,
I
yeah.
would do is I would take your sage or your Palo Santo and go to that corner of your home and be very intentional and ask for your guardian angels and spirit guides to close that portal on your behalf.
Wow. That is new news to me. Like I think you just don't think about it. It's like, oh, it's a creepy basement. I don't go in there. Or like, oh yeah, like the guest bedroom. No one uses that, but it's like always really cold. And like, you know what I'm saying? It's making me question
People
everything.
are so much more intuitive than they give themselves credit for. We sense these things so subtly, but we're not taught to look out for some of these different things that our body is already signaling to us.
Probably because if we did, we would be unstoppable. Like that's like a superpower to lean into
Hmm.
your intuition. Since it is Aries season, spring, I think a lot of people associate the spring with cleaning, clearing out. So we've been talking about clearing out negative energies and entities. But what about some of the things in your home that have a negative frequency that you may not even realize? There's a couple of things that I could mention that I feel like have made a difference in my life, but I'm interested to know your perspective.
I would say the first thing for spiritual folks who are listening is to make sure that you are clearing your crystals because
Mm.
crystals are little energetic absorbers. They're little sponges. So if you have a corner in your house with a lot of crystals and you frequently have people over, those crystals are probably absorbing everything that other people are bringing into your home. So again, going in with your sage and just intentionally letting go of any energy that those crystals might be holding on to is a really great place to start. And then any objects from your past that may be charged with bad memories or bad energy, such as things
Ooh.
that belong to an ex partner.
Don't
uh,
look at me.
such as things from a bad time of your life that remind you of a really hard time, or any objects even that you've inherited from loved ones who had a negative energy
Oh.
about them. So things that you've taken on from other people, all of those things can contribute to the energy of your home.
Okay, let me double back here. Shoot me straight, Emily. I have kind of prided myself in all of like the relationships that I have, which haven't been many, but it's been, fair amount of relationships. I have like a few things from those past relationships clothes wise because, boys have comfy clothes. And even though that relationship is gone, I'm like, you know what? I'll just keep this sweatshirt. I've got this like Adidas sweatshirt from my college boyfriend who was the worst person on the planet. Should I get rid of that?
I would recommend getting rid of it. I've gotten rid of all my old stuff too
Wow.
from my past relationships. It's just, to me,
Mm,
is not a really good thing to keep around in your space.
I know you're right. Like, I'm not even going to argue with you. I know you're right. It's just such a cute, it's like a vintage Reebok sweater.
Mm.
I'm just like, it's so cute. Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I would say if it's something that you genuinely, authentically really love, and it's not because you're attached to the memories that it brought you,
Mm.
I would say that again, with your intention, send that sweater white white light, and use your sage and just set the intention to clear any energetic attachment to it. And that might do the trick. But if you're holding on to things because in some way they remind you of that person, it's just not a good thing to keep around.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I feel like the former is more true of me. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe miracles will happen in my life once I get rid of that shit.
Yeah, true.
We'll
True.
find
Who
out.
knows?
I was thinking along the lines too. So, weirdest thing, when I moved into this apartment in Los Angeles, I rented a 2-bedroom because I wanted my second bedroom to dual as like a podcast recording space meets Pilates studio meets like workshop, etc. But when I first moved, it was like I unpacked my whole house and then any like boxes and shit I didn't want to sift through, I put it in that spare bedroom, shut the door. Okay, I need to talk about this. Didn't even realize it at the time, but the level of weight I felt energetically, probably for the last 5 months, up until I cleaned it out because I did, it was just like things were so clogged in my life. I don't know if it's because I had the intention to use that bedroom in such a positive, productive way, and I wasn't, that it was like clogging the energy. But it was like the second that it took me 5 hours one day, cleared it all out, got rid of the boxes, donated things. I swear to you, things started flowing. I started like making more money. I started dating. Things started happening after I cleared that out. Do you see an energetic tie to that?
Oh, 100%. We can be so weighed down by our stuff and the clutter in our homes and the things from the past. I know for me, I made the effort in the fall to like do a big house clean out because I was feeling weighed down and I was feeling super disconnected. And oh my God, it made a huge difference. And then I scheduled someone to come and clean my house, which just added on another layer of like, whoa, I feel so much better. I feel lighter and brighter. I enjoy being in my space again. I redid my office space and bought like a whole new chest of drawers for me to organize some of my spiritual things. And now I enjoy like being in my office and I enjoy being in the space. And I think when we can get rid of things that are weighing us down and bothering us, it can free up so much energy so that we're not thinking about those things anymore and we can direct our energy in a different way.
Yes, freeing up your physical space frees up your mental space, frees up your
Mm-hmm.
energetic space. When I think about when my place is a wreck and I've got like food lying out on the counters, or like just trash and I'm just being that those are the days where I'm like laid up on the couch watching reality TV, like shoving my face with pizza, depressed. I'm not even kidding. Like, but when I think about when my space is clean, pristine, scrubbed down, everything's in its place, I am so productive. I'm doing multiple jobs, I'm recording podcast interviews. Like I am so feeling much energetically lighter. So I do think that's a testament to this. And I feel like this entire episode is amazing for Aries season on so many levels. You know, we're starting the astrological new year. So, one, fresh start. And with spring cleaning, it's just a good time to clean everything in your life, not just your house, but clean out whatever's in your energetic field. And I hope that by listening to this episode and all of the information that Emily shared, which I just like feel like I word vomited questions to you and you just like laid all of them up. You were like, got it, got it, got it. Yeah, I really appreciate you for doing this.
Of course. And yeah, I mean, I think with the beginning of this astrological new year, it is so important to do that spring cleaning, both of your physical space and also of your mental, energetic space. Anything that's weighing you down really needs to be addressed. You will know those things because they're the first things that are coming into your mind right now as you're listening to this episode, right? And if you feel weighed down by your whole house, because trust me, I've been there. I have a hard time getting rid of things. So I am by no means an expert at keeping a super clean space. But what helps me is starting with one drawer or one cabinet or one closet and just going all in there. And you will feel so much better on the other side. And then you can tackle other things from there. So I hope that helps.
It really does. Now my to-do is going to be to clear things out, get a good clean in, and then do an energy clearing as well.
Yes, definitely.
And I'll be good to go. Emily, how can people connect with you? Where can they follow you on social media? Where can they book a session with you?
Yeah, so come find me on Instagram and YouTube. I am Emily the Mystic, and also listen to my new podcast, which is called The Emily the Mystic Show, available wherever you listen to your podcasts, and find all of my offerings, including my entity clearing sessions and all of the readings that I do on my website, emilythemystic.com.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me on. This was a blast.
Was that not like the most eye-opening and informative and helpful conversation? Thank you so much to Emily the Mystic again for joining the Astro Candy podcast. If you like what you heard, you know I have another episode featuring Emily all about the Akashic Records, past lives, soul contracts, intuitive gifts, and more. So check that out. I will link it in the show notes. And I hope after hearing that episode, you take your spiritual hygiene seriously. And you, in addition to clearing out your closets, you clear out those negative energies, entities, and close those portals this spring season so you can have a truly fresh start. Speaking of the spring season, Aries season, the astrological new year, if you want to know what to expect this Aries season, as far as what's going on in the stars and how it's going to affect you, I just rolled out a new Astro Candy mini-sode sub-series called Stargazing. They're very short, 15-minute or less episodes about what to expect and how all the major transits of that zodiac season are going to affect you. You can check that out. I will link it in my show notes. It came out earlier this week, and you can expect those every month moving forward. Also, because I know a lot of people voted when I did the poll a couple weeks ago on what episode they wanted to hear. But next week is the brainwashing episode. Yeah, so get ready for that. I'm going to tell you how to brainwash yourself to essentially raise your vibrational frequency and experience a different reality. Yeah, we're going to get weird next week. So get ready for that. And I will see you then. Bye.